I want to encourage you all, if you're able, on April 5th, when we do our day of service, to be involved in that. Um, the task won't be very hard. We only go from about 9:30 to noon or so. So it's great to see several churches join together and serve our community. So if you're able to be a part of that, I promise you that you will be a blessing and you will be blessed from doing that. You don't have to get the T-shirt. I know that seems uh, God's church can't do anything without a T-shirt, but you don't have to get the T-shirt. We can still be involved in that. Uh, One of the hardest part of being a parent, at least for me, was disciplining my kids. And one of the hard parts of disciplining your kid, unless you're a Vulcan, no one's a Vulcan in here, right? No pointed ears. Oh, nice. That was Aaron's son that did that, not Sydney's, by the way. It was Sydney. No, it wasn't Sydney. Uh, One of the hardest parts of being a parent is usually your kid, before you discipline them, they push that button too hard, haven't they? They've pushed it too far. That raw nerve that was exposed, they just kind of grated on it after you had a hard day at work or whatever. And the temptation is for us to then discipline with some emotion or with some anger that could be behind it. And, the Bible warns us as parents not to do that. In Colossians, it tells fathers not to provoke. One translation, another translation says exasperate your children. And the original word there is translated to irritate or arouse feelings such as anger, hurt, shame, or fear to the point of exasperation. And when we discipline our kids, when we get angry, boy, it sure seems hard to make rational decisions. I think when I was raising my kids, or I'm still raising my kids, they're just not in my house anymore. They're still my kids. Um, I think it's cheaper that they've left my house. I don't know at times, but I think it is. But, I have three kids. Autumn is my oldest. Autumn is the rule follower, the standard bearer. She was pretty easy, plus she was a girl. She was the first girl. She's daddy's girl. She's the only girl. She was pretty easy to handle. Had to discipline her a little bit when she was little. There were spankings that came her way. But as she got older, a good talking to, or just the fear that she'd do something wrong would keep her in line. And then there's Josiah, the youngest. And Josiah, being the third, he's just laid back, easy-go-lucky. I couldn't figure out how to discipline him. I just couldn't. I remember one night I took a church in Illinois. I'd be up there for 2 weeks. I'd come home on the weekend until my wife and kids could move at the end of a school year. And one night, that kid kept getting out of his bed, no matter what. And I'd spank him on his behind or on his leg, and he'd keep getting out. Just couldn't figure out, even as he got older. Take away my computer. Take away this. Right? It just didn't seem to matter. And then there's Hunter, Scott Hunter, right? My firstborn son kind of takes after me. And it's amazing. Every time my wife, and usually my wife, because I'd be busy or working something, would go to school for the parent-teacher conference. Oh, we love Scott Hunter or Hunter. He's always a great help, but he likes to talk to everyone around him, right? If we could just get him to not be so social. So for my son, my firstborn son, Hunter, to discipline him, if we would take away activities where he couldn't be with his friends, or if we separated him from the family, that seemed to be the discipline that would get home quickest, that would land with him. Spanking, he could get over that, right? But if he wasn't around his friends or wasn't able to do something he wanted to, that seemed to be the discipline that got him. Even, excuse me, in our prisons, we reserve isolation for the prisoners who have done the most harm, who have done the most wrong, do we not? Because when you're alone with your own maddening thoughts, with your own things, it seems that you just can't do anything but go insane. Doubt, fear, all of that stuff creeps in when you are isolated. You know why? Because we were created for relationships. God made us that way. Again, we are the only creation that He did not speak into existence. Let there be water. There's water. Let the earth show up. The earth showed up. Let there be plants and animals. Here they come. But when it came to man, he got in there, he got his hands dirty, and it says he breathed into us life. We were created for relationships. Ask any nurse or doctor that spends time in a hospital. Ask them when it is that they give out the most pain medications, and you will find it is the nighttime hours. Why? Shouldn't they be sleeping at night? Well, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there are no sleep number stores that say we sell hospital beds and we're making a killing. They're not going to sleep at night in those things. Trust me, I've been there. It doesn't work. I remember I'd had enough of my hospital bed when I was there for quite a long time, kind of like Carla and her transplant. And I slept, there literally was a window nook. And I went over and slept in that. And when the nurse came in to check my bed, because there was an alarm on it, my cousin actually was laying in the bed. And she's like, where is your IV and everything? He goes, oh, I'm not the patient. He's over there. The reason they put more meds at night is because all the visitors have gone home. And the patient's left alone. And the combination of darkness and being alone, pain seems to slide in. Being alone truly is the worst sentence that can be passed on anyone. Today, we're going to look at three men who face a crisis, if you will. And the story is found in Daniel. If you want to turn in Daniel chapter 3, that's where we're going to spend most of our time today. But in the book of Daniel, remember Israel has gone into captivity. They've been actually sent into captivity by God because they turned their back on him. They had leaders that led their nation away from God. And so God says, I am going to let another nation come in and take you captive. And when Babylon would come in and take people captive, they would take their best and their brightest, and they would retrain them into their ways, and then allow them to oversee the lands, and often the lands that they had overtaken, which is kind of smart, right? Why take some of your people and trying to re-educate them when we can find theirs, and they're not going to kill their own, right? So let's educate them and send them back. We don't have to worry about them getting assassinated, or they'll know how to collect taxes because they know who really has money and who doesn't, right? Well, these men had already stood up to Nebuchadnezzar once. With Daniel, you've heard that story. Hey, we're going to give you the best of the food offered to idols. Daniel said no. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went along with him. And at the end of the trial period of them just eating grain, they were better off than any other prisoners. But there came a time later that these men had to stand alone. Nebuchadnezzar was the absolute ruler. And Nebuchadnezzar had some advisors, if you will, that said, hey, you're such a great ruler, you're such a great king, you have got to be near God status. And as a God, you ought to build an image to yourself. And it shouldn't just be a little image, right? It should be a huge image. And we need to make this huge image, and everyone needs to bow down and worship it. Now, what testosterone-filled man, leader, would not want that to happen? I cannot tell you the many times I've had to tell my wife, no, we're not going to put an image of me in the front yard. So every time you guys leave the house, I'm kidding, that never even came up. But who wouldn't want that, right? These advisors are playing to his ego so that they can have more input. So that's what happened. They build these pits out in this valley. They have to build pits so they can build fire to melt the ore and melt the precious metals to build this monstrosity. It's 9 foot tall. It is a big old idol, and they build it, right? And he gets the band together. He makes a decree. When you hear the band start playing, hey, everybody is to bow down and worship this image because I am the great Nebuchadnezzar. He gets them together. The band tunes up. The band plays, and everyone bows down, right? No, not quite. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these 3 Hebrews who said we're not going to eat meat or grain offered to idols, they said we're still going to hold true to God and we are not going to bow to no one else but him. Well, those advisors that had told the king, hey, you need to make this image, they noticed these 3 guys standing up. I mean, this is a massive valley. He's bringing his whole kingdom to do this. And I'm sure Nebuchadnezzar probably didn't notice 3 guys somewhere just standing up, right? But these guys did. They knew Shadrach and Abednego's testimony, and they knew what they would do. They were trapping them. In Daniel chapter 3, verse 10, it says, O king, have you made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, you know it was a good band if it had bagpipes, right? bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship it shall be cast into the burning furnace. There are certain Jews among you who have appointed over the affairs of providence of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve our gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Now, Neb has been built up by these guys and other people who go along with it, again, to be a God-like figure. And I say God with a little g, right? Not a big G, a little God. He is deity, or at least a junior God, right? A God in training. And he should be worshiped. Notice Nebuchadnezzar's response. Verse 13, then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the hornpipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipes, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into the burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands? Even a God has mercy and grace at times. And Nebuchadnezzar is trying to extend to these three men a chance to do it right. So he hits reset, right? Resets everything up, tells everyone stand up, band get ready to play, band plays, everyone bows down except Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The song says they wouldn't bend, they wouldn't bow, right? And they didn't. Verse 19, then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated. In other words, they knew the temperature to melt the ore and the gold and the silver, all the things that were made to make this idol. They took it even hotter. And he ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Now, I know we've heard and seen the commercials, right? Secondhand smoke kills. Don't you wish that kind of applied to other things? Like you go to the gym and you bring your tacos and your soda pop, not diet because we're eating tacos and we're going to enjoy them, right? And you see someone over there running on the treadmill, and you go up there and you saddle next to him, eating your tacos, drinking your soda, and you start losing weight because they're running on the treadmill. Wouldn't that be amazing? Hey, can you speed it up a little bit? Right? I need to lose more weight. I want to eat another taco or a burrito, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. There's a lesson to be learned here, though, different than the one I want to conclude with in my message here. As leaders, if you hold a leadership position, even in our homes, moms and dads, if we do not watch our tempers and are not careful about the decisions we make, remember it says here it was made in haste, it will end up costing us and costing the people we lead. There's something about watching our temper and being calculated about our decisions. Back to the story. These men are thrown in. The guards, the mightiest of his men, die. And these guys fall into the furnace. They have to fall. They can't be pushed. These guys are consumed. These guys are dead. They should have instantly been burned, right? Nebuchadnezzar should have heard these men screaming in pain when they burned their finger. Men, we know what that sounds like, right? When our wife touches the pan because she forgets it's still hot, or that water boils over when she's making macaroni and cheese and it catches her hand or something, you know what I mean? Ah! There it comes out, right? That scream would be the same when these men catch fire, but it didn't happen. So, of course, Nebuchadnezzar's got to know, why am I not hearing screaming? Why am I not smelling that smell of burnt flesh, of burnt hair? Verse 24, Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not burnt. And the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods." Now, there's been a lot of theological discussions and a lot of ways that this passage has been interpreted. You see, the English Standard Version says it is like a son of the gods. Other translation says it was like the son of God. But no matter what translation or how you want to break this down, the fact is that these 3 men were not left alone in the fiery furnace, that God sent someone to be with them. Whether it was a pre-incarnate Christ, whether it was just one of God's most trusted angels, these 3 men were not left alone in the fire. And that's where the story gets better. In our biggest time of need, we're not alone. In our biggest struggle, we're not alone. In our smallest struggle, we are not alone. In our biggest celebrations, we are not alone. God always wants to be with us. If you're attending one of our life groups, you know that we're going through a series right now where we're studying the 23rd Psalm. And the 23rd Psalm is something that most of us have memorized as a kid. If not, hey, I'm going to put the words up on the screen. I want us to read the 23rd Psalm together. And I want you to kind of pay attention to what this psalm is saying, all right? Let's start together. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You've prepared a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Now, this is used, I use it at gravesides, in our services, for funerals. And what greater comfort than to know that I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, right? What greater comfort than there's no valley that's going to overcome me, that there's nothing going on, and phew, I've made it to heaven. And when we read this, we call it the shepherd's psalm or the good shepherd's psalm. We all look at all the benefits we get from it, and we're like, yeah, we've got food, we've got provision, we've got everything. But guys, that is not the purpose of this psalm. This psalm is all about the fact that the sheep is never alone, the shepherd is always with him. See, that's the point. No matter where we are, no matter what's going on, we are not out of the presence of God. Notice that God does not take us away from the presence of our enemies. What does that say there in highlighted bold letters? He prepares a table before me in what? The presence of my enemies. Boy, don't get me wrong. I want to pray, God, take this struggle away from me. And it is biblical, right? Jesus himself said, Father, if it be your will, let this cup, we're about to celebrate his resurrection coming up, let it pass from me. But the fact is, the cup couldn't pass from me. And like the good shepherd, he is with us even when our enemies are sitting across from us. He sits down. He says, hey, let your enemies watch this. How was your day? I see the struggle. I see these guys over there sharpening their swords. I see them wanting to come after you. But hey, let's talk for a little bit. Hey, that's a great outfit you're wearing. Was it on sale? Right? Whatever it is, he prepares, he tries to commune with us when it seems that chaos is going on all around us. His presence is the very gift we need. Matthew 28:19. This is the presence, this is the promise on the New Testament side. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. When your kids have stomped all over your last good nerve, I am with you always. When your money has more month left at the end of it, a lot more month left at the end of your money, I am with you always. When you just can't cope with the day, I'm with you always. When you have to say goodbye because a spouse or a loved one or child, God forbid, has been taken away from you, I am with you always. When that relationship that you thought was the one crashes and burns, I am with you always. The worst thing is to be alone. And Satan sure does his best to isolate us. Oh, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. If people knew this about me, they wouldn't accept me. They wouldn't love me. I don't measure up to this. I don't measure up to that. I don't measure up to this person or that person. And all of that language tries to isolate us so that we withdraw from people and the relationships, the very things we need to make it through life, we pull away from. Stop letting Satan defeat you and tell you that you're alone. Lean into his God's proven promise. I am with you always. Allow Jesus' physical body that he established, the church, even with all our imperfections. Someone said, I don't want to go to church because they're a bunch of hypocrites. Well, good, then one more won't matter. Come on in. Right? We all are messed up. We all are flawed. Let the church come around you so you're not isolated, so you're not alone. No matter what we face, no matter where we are, we will not be alone if we're a child of God. I am with you always. What a great comfort. What a great promise. Those three Hebrew men did not bend. They didn't bow. And the last part of that great Statler Brothers old song, right? They didn't bend, they didn't bow, they didn't burn. There was a fourth man in the fire. Whether you believe it was Jesus or one of his angels, God did not leave them alone when they needed to not be alone the most. He won't leave you alone. The question is, will you accept it? See, a lot of times that comfort and that help is there, but we refuse to sit down at the table, right? How many of us don't even sit down at the table when we eat at home? We don't, do we? I don't. There's a basketball game on or a Western on that I got to sit in front of the TV. And it seems we don't even slow down to eat anymore. Will you accept the fact that you're not alone? Will you lean in to the love that Jesus provides? Father, this morning, what a great comfort to know that we're not alone. You left heaven. You had everything. You had your Father's adoration. You had angels responding to everything you would ever need. Even here on earth, Satan himself said that if you would just request something, that God would send angels to make it happen. But you valued us above all that. You weren't going to leave us alone in our sin, alone in our despair. Father, thank you for giving up your Son, for the separation that you had to go through when he was on that cross and all of our sin was thrown on him. Today, our world tries to tell us that no one is like us, tries to tell us that we are to be a one-off, that we are to be truly a lone ranger, instead of understanding that we were created to be a part of something so much more. I'm sure in this room there are people that have been struggling. Recent events, loss of loved ones or life circumstances has them turned upside down and has them wondering why and how, and they don't know how they're going to make it through. And Father, I pray today that they would hold on to the promise that you gave us in your word that we are not alone. That instead of letting Satan wrap around their heart and their mind these lies that they have to try and figure it out on their own, that they lean into your word and ask for help from people that can be trusted, people that know your word and will turn their hearts back toward God. Father, even though we try and fix things, we know you're the ultimate healer. You're the ultimate fixer. Help us not to try and run out in front of you, but to take the time to truly sit at the table and hear your voice and move as you lead. Thank you for always being with us. Thank you for the gift of the church and good friends so that we know we are not alone. In your name we pray. Amen.